I gotta ask you about what we left off at. We were talking about Tito. Um, when I mentioned that some guys were accusing him of loading his raps. Uh,
Right.
that's where we left off at. Um, but ever since then, I couldn't sleep. I was thinking about it the last couple of nights, and I
Okay.
kept waking up every morning thinking, "Wait a second. This wasn't the first time that Nassim Richardson accused someone of doing some kind of stuff like that. Like, remember what happened with the Mosley and Margarito fight?
Right. Yes.
This wasn't the first time.
Right.
So I'm starting to think maybe Nassim Richardson was playing mind games.
Well, or maybe, hey, maybe he caught something. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, people do funny things. Who knows? And it could be blown out of proportion in terms of well, I know that I think in one of the instances they said that they were putting gauze and tape, like layering it. Well, I know you can't do that. So, I mean, obviously he caught something because they made him rewrap. I mean, if there was nothing there, he would have done it every fight, and he would have, or the commission would have said, you don't know what you're talking about. Go back in your dressing room. So if the commission made him rewrap, then obviously he found something, and so it is what it is.
You're speaking of Tito, or are you speaking of Margarito?
Whoever he caught. I mean, look, I don't want to believe Tito would do something like that, but where there's smoke, there's fire sometimes. I mean, if they made him rewrap, there was something wrong. And I'll tell you what, some guys think that's okay, doing the gauze the tape. They think that's all right. And sometimes they do that in other states and they get away with it. Then they come to Vegas or New York. As a matter of fact, it was in New York, and they get, there's different rules. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it is what it is. They certainly fought under the rules. By the time they went in the ring, they both had the right wraps on. They had the right gloves. It was a fair fight, and and Bernard won. So I can't argue with it. But Nazim, I've had my differences with Nazim over the years. He actually passed away with us not being friends anymore. We had a little issue after the fight with Chad and Bernard, the first time and the second time. Yeah. So we never pieced it up, and we were friends. I know him since before he got famous. I was friends with Nazim before anyone knew who he was outside of Philadelphia. But it is what it is. Things happen sometimes. But like I say, sometimes people do things in certain states, and if nobody catches them or nobody says anything, they just keep doing it, and then they get caught. They get caught outside the rules of that day. So that's what happened apparently.
Hey, speaking of Nassim Richardson, I once bumped into him. It was when Hopkins was going to fight Pascal, and we had a little argument, but it was nothing that bad. It was just that I called Hopkins a dirty fighter, and Nassim Richardson said, no, he's not a dirty fighter. He's just a smart fighter. He's a crafty fighter. He
was dirty. He got away with it. It is what it is. I mean, I give Bernard all the credit, but look, he led with his head. I don't care what Nazim said. And that's part of the thing that we had our issue with, where I said that. I said, look, we got ready for the guy that ducked his head down and came in head first. So you don't, and Bernard, he tried to say the same thing. Like, he just did what he had to do. And I'm like, no, he didn't do what he had to do. He came in with his head. It happened numerous times. You'd have to be blind not to see it. And it is what it is. I mean, everybody knows that. We went into the fight preparing for that. And to his credit, to Chad's credit, I'll say this. In the first fight, he if you remember, before the fight ended, when he threw Hopkins off him, there was a point when Bernard tried to get a little physical, and he had always had the upper hand when he was getting physical with guys. And Chad put his forearm under Bernard's chin and pushed him back and let him know, I'm not the one. I'm not that guy tonight. And I believe that played a factor. That was something I don't think Bernard was prepared for. And he saw that he was in with a different guy that night, a different level of mentality. I think he was matched with the mentality that he had. And, you know, that's something Bernard would have done to somebody else. So I think that's a factor in what happened. But, you know, it is what it is sometimes.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned Chad Dawson, because that was the first time and that I actually interviewed you. Okay. So it's funny how time flies. That was actually the first time that I interviewed you. And I still have that recording.
That was for the first fight or the second fight?
For both of them.
Really?
For both.
Okay. Wow.
So time sure flies.
Yeah, for sure. 11 years, almost 12.
But hey, man, it is what it is, man. Bernard Hopkins was a dirty fighter.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know why people just can't admit it. You know, like, you can watch. You're not blind. I'm not blind. I wasn't in boxing all these years to be blind and to pretend something's not happening. He was being dirty. And if we did the same thing to him he did to us, he would say we were dirty. You know, so maybe Nazim was a little too close to the situation, and he saw the art of it, you know, the art and the guile and the old time tricks. Yeah, they were dirty. You're dirty. They were dirty tricks. I mean, come on, man. You can't imagine if every fighter fought like Bernard Hopkins, head down and coming in with the top of his head. It'd be crazy. Boxing would be horrible if both guys fought like that all the time. Boxing would be horrible. So Bernard was able to get away with it because other guys wanted to protect themselves. They didn't want to get hit with the top of his head is bald and it's the top of his head, and nobody wants to get hit with that. So if he was not who he was, he would have got warned and he would have got points taken away, and he probably got disqualified a couple times. But because he was who he was, he got the benefit of the doubt. And he played that. He played on that. He used that to his advantage. And in hindsight, you have to give him credit. He did what he had to do, and he got away with what he could get away with to succeed. So I can't be mad at that. But when you're fighting my guy, well, we got to eliminate the tactics.
And you know how much I love Tito. So I was upset when Hopkins was hitting Tito on his hips. He kept hitting him on his hips.
Right.
All night long.
Yeah, but nobody said anything. You know,
nope.
You know, you got to speak up. And if you're in the corner and your guy's getting manhandled or taking advantage of it, you have to speak up. You know, you got to make your presence known, and they didn't do that, so that's on them. You know, that's where the corner becomes important. Sometimes a corner could go 10 fights and nothing happens. They're not even able to play a role. But there's going to come that one moment when the corner needs to be a part of it. He needs to interject himself. And you gotta pull the trigger when that moment comes.
You're absolutely right. 100%. 100%. I think Team Trinidad just let Hopkins do what he wanted that night.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes the corner, you know, hesitates or whatever the case may be. They don't see it, or, you know, like I said, they don't pull the trigger. And you have to, and look, Nazim, for better or worse, he pulled the trigger when the moment came. He interjected himself, and it worked.
It sure did. And since we're on this topic about these loaded wraps, did you get to watch Crawford's fight?
I saw basically the ending. I saw the ending. Beautiful counterpunch. You know, really textbook, pretty stuff to watch. you know, just that last 2-punch combination was something a trainer should show their fighter how to execute that. It was really, really masterful stuff.
But I'm actually referring to Crawford's gloves.
Well, so I'm not really sure the whole story. So both of his gloves broke?
Well, I don't know if it was both of Crawford's gloves, but I think from what I heard, it was his left glove that was ripped on two separate parts of his gloves. Of that left glove, I should say, was ripped, and the referee let the fight continue. So how is that possible?
I mean, I've seen fights. You could probably Google it on YouTube. Donald Curry back in, I think, 1981 on ESPN in Lake Charles, Louisiana. He was in a fight. His glove broke twice in the same fight. It broke. They stopped the action. They went and got a new glove. The glove broke again. You know, a couple rounds later, they had to stop the action and go get another glove. You can't allow a guy to fight with a ripped glove, a broken glove. But, you know, I don't know if that had any bearing on the outcome. I don't think Crawford was going to lose, you know, otherwise, you know. So, but again, the other corner should have said something. You know, they should have been in there. They didn't say anything, so apparently it wasn't important to them enough.
But don't you think those rips can cut an opponent?
Yeah, of course, yeah. But nobody said anything. You know, the referee didn't say anything. The corner didn't say anything. You know, I saw a picture of the glove. I would think people watching the fight must have seen that it was ripped. You'd think somebody would have pointed it out. Somebody would have jumped up. I would have if I was working the corner, even whether it was my guy or the opponent. I would have said, ref, the glove's ripped. What are you crazy? What are you doing? We got to stop the fight. So I guess they'd have to ask the referee why they didn't do that, why he didn't stop it and fix it.
I know one guy that would have jumped up, Lou Duva.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Maybe next time Crawford should wear rival gloves.
Right. Hey, I don't think they would have ripped.
Hey, but we also left off at Carlos Padilla. Carlos Padilla. And it's something that's on my mind. It just won't go away after hearing Carlos Padilla admit that he favored Manny Pacquiao against Nedal Hussein.
Right.
Like admitting that he gave a long count and that he stopped that fight, where you can see Nedal Hussein wasn't that hurt. He was still fighting, just to give Manny Pacquiao that win. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know why he admitted it. I don't know what got into him to admit that. That's a stain on him forever. You know, he could have changed the course. He did probably change the course of history of boxing with that. Now, people could say, oh, well, you know, Pacquiao's Pacquiao. And, you know, but the other guy had a career too. Just because he's not a big name, he had a career too. He wanted to win. He wanted to get some, at least fairness, if not favoritism. He would have loved to have favoritism. So that was a little disappointing, I would say, to hear that from Carlos. But, you know, it's probably human nature to a degree. You know, you got your countrymen and you know, you didn't have a lot of boxing stars maybe from that country, and they saw an opportunity to, you know, cultivate one of his own. And he took, you know, he probably had, it was a spur of the moment thing, and he had a chance to do one thing or another, and he chose what I would say is the wrong choice. Maybe he feels a little guilty now, who knows, but kind of surprising, a little bit disappointing to hear that.
Yeah, I was shocked when I heard that. I was shocked. But, you know, Manny Pacquiao wasn't even a superstar when that fight took place.
Right. Well, you know, probably over there, he was, you know, more of a star than he was here. So Carlos was probably much more aware of him than everybody else was.
And you know, now that I think about, you know, what happened and how Carlos Padilla is admitting this, you know, I thought right away, I thought about Pacquiao and Marquez. They had tremendous wars. I felt that Marquez won every fight, including that first fight. And when I think about that first fight, when Marquez went down in that first round, Manny Pacquiao hit him while he was down.
Yeah.
So don't you think that Manny Pacquiao should have been warned or even DQ'd because it looked like it was intentional?
Of course, of course. I mean, I'm sure if we look through history, plenty of, you know, incidents where these type of things happen. You know, I don't know if you know this, but in the Muhammad Ali Joe Frazier second fight, the rematch, Ali hurt Frazier very noticeably in the second round, and the referee stopped the fight, saying that the round ended. He said he heard the bell, and it wasn't true. You know, he stopped Ali from more than likely stopping Joe Frazier right in those moments. So a lot of people don't know about that. So a lot of times in history, things have happened, very similar circumstances.
That is crazy. Yeah. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
There's so much that happens in boxing that, you know, we think that we've seen it all, and we haven't seen it all.
Right.
No.
Yeah. You know, they stop fights where the timekeeper will, you know, hit the bell at 2 minutes instead of 3 minutes. Or I think there was a fight recently where he let the round go 4 minutes or something like that. You know, so lots of stuff. You have to pay attention. You know, you have to pay attention because people are, you know, one or two things. People are human and prone to human error, or people are sketchy and they're prone to human, you know, not good practices. So you got to keep it, you know, you have to pay attention to these things. You know, there was a time, I always remember in 1986, Johnny Bumpus fought Marlon Starling, and that was a year before Marlon Starling beat Breland for the title. Johnny Bumpus won the fight on a cut after a certain round, you know, and they stopped it after a round when they could still go to the scorecards. Johnny Bumpus had a cut from a headbutt. In the corner, Lou Duva opened the cut more. He opened it. He didn't try to close it. He opened it.
Wow.
And then he called the referee over, and he said, hey, look at this. You got to stop the fight, because he knew two things. One is if they went to the scorecards after that round, Bumpus was ahead. And two, Bumpus was getting tired, and Marlon would have probably caught up to him going over the course of 10 or 12 rounds and probably stopped Johnny. So Lou Duva did something illegal, and the referee didn't catch it, and Johnny won the fight.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm gonna watch that fight.
Yeah, so it was on a I believe it was on a Vinny Pazienza card. They were like the semifinal to Vinny Pazienza main event.
That is insane.
Yep.
And speaking of cuts, I always argue with the Fury and Otto Wallin fight not being stopped because of that cut that Fury suffered. It looked like Otto Wallin was winning that fight, and
right.
You know, that fight wasn't stopped. And I always reference back to Lennox Lewis and Vitali Klitschko, when Vitali Klitschko got caught and that fight was stopped, and it was practically the same type of cut that Fury suffered against Wallin, Otto Wallin. So why wasn't that Fury Wallin fight stopped?
Right. You know, it's a lot goes into it. Like a referee, it's not a cut and dry thing where you stop it automatically. You know, like I'll give an example. When Arthur fought Marcus Brown, and Arthur got that horrible cut, Now, if they stopped it and went to the scorecards after a few rounds, Arthur may have lost. I don't know what the scorecard was, but after the first 3 rounds or so, Brown was probably ahead 2-1. But as you saw, Arthur obviously was able to fight through a cut. Some guys, not all fighters are the same, and referees know that. They get a feel and a vibe, or they know the history of certain guys, and not everybody's going to be allowed to go on with a cut. Now, like other guys would have got that cut, and they would have stopped it. But the referee knew Arthur. He knew what kind of man he was, what he was capable of, so he let it go. So sometimes there's no cut and dry thing, really. Maybe there should be, but there isn't. So a referee is going to take into account if he knows the fighter history and what type of man he is. And some guys they'll let go, and some guys they won't.
Well, it's a good thing you brought up Beterbiev, because in that case, we both know that he's a beast.
Yeah.
He's not going to quit.
No.
And we can see that made him even stronger. That cut made him stronger.
Right.
You can see that Beterbiev picked it up. He picked it up, and he went for the kill.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But there's some fighters that get cut, and they fold. Like, for some reason, they see too much blood that.
Right. Well, that's it. You have to. That's why you have to know. You have to know the fighter. There's certain guys. They're not going to go through war and cuts, and and you have to know them. Everybody has their threshold for pain and discomfort and different things like that, and not everybody's able to withstand what other people can. So it's a good idea if a referee is in tune with certain guys and he knows who he's dealing with.
And 2 guys just popped into my mind, speaking of getting cut and being warriors, is Gatti and Chico Corrales.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Those are 2, those are 2 guys you could let go. You don't have to worry about letting them go. I'll tell you what, I was in a fight. I might have told you this story. I told this story to somebody recently. 1993, I fought Tony Thornton, the punching postman. We fought at the Blue Horizon on USA Tuesday Night Fights. And in my previous fight, I was cut very badly in 3 places: under this eye, and over this eye. I was actually cut twice over this eye, once under the eyebrow, once on top of it. I fought against Tony Thornton just a few months later. It was a mistake. It was too soon to fight a fight. I was going to get cut guaranteed. Just because the cuts look good on the outside, they're not good on the inside. It takes a long time for them to heal. So I fought Tony Thornton in the Blue Horizon, which the ring was, I believe, 14 by 14, which is incredibly small. So early in the fight, all my cuts opened up. Now, the referee, who was a very well-known referee, Rudy Battle, he came over to the corner after a few rounds like he might stop it. And I said to him, and I was very serious, I said to him, if you stop this fight, I'm going to kill you. And he said, hey, relax, son. I said, no, you're not stopping this fight. Now, I went the distance. We went the full distance. I guarantee you the reason he let it go is because of my attitude. Now, if I didn't say anything in the corner, or if I put my head down when he started talking about stopping the fight, I bet you he would have stopped that fight after 7, 8 rounds. I was bleeding. Blood was flowing into my eyes, but I never stopped. I kept going. So he got the vibe from me, obviously, because he actually said to me, like, relax, don't threaten my life, But that told him I'm serious. And so some fighters, I'm not going to name names, but I've seen fighters in corners when they're cut and the referee comes over, they put up no fight, no visible fight. That tells me they don't want to fight. If the referee comes to me with any I will yell at him before he gets to the corner. I'm going to tell him, get away. Don't even come here. Don't even come. Because I want him to know under no uncertain circumstances, whatever it is, whatever the term is. Basically, you're not stopping this fight. So you have to let them know what kind of man you are. Because if they don't know you and you're quiet, they're stopping the fight, 100%.
Hey, there's one fighter that I was talking to a couple of guys about the other day. I don't want to mention his name, but I honestly feel that this guy quit because he got cut, and it was just like a paper cut. It wasn't even a big cut.
Yeah.
The fight got stopped, and he didn't complain.
Right.
At the end of the night, he ended up winning, which he should.
Look, as a man, as a fighter, even though if they stop the fight is over. You know that. There's nothing you can say to get them to overturn it. He's already stopped it. That's the end of it. But as a fighter, if you don't go ballistic and scream and say, please don't stop the fight, please, then part of you is happy. It's a fact. It's emotion. You know, you're gonna cry. You're gonna complain. You know, it's gonna be over. The pain of them stopping the fight on you, the disappointment is gonna be more than enough to have you lash out. If they stop it and you're quiet, I don't think you mind.
Exactly. And that's what, till this day, I always think about Lennox Lewis, Vitali Klitschko, because I saw the way Vitali Klitschko was like complaining. He was saying, let me fight.
Yeah.
He didn't want to quit. Let me fight. And the referee stopped that fight. Until this day, I always wish there was a rematch.
Yeah, of course. And you know what? If I'm a referee, I'm the type of guy I would be. If a guy begs me to let him fight, I'm going to let him fight. He's already cut. Period. You know, and I'm going to give the corner a chance to do their thing and whatever. But I wouldn't probably make a good referee because I would let guys fight. I would let them fight through almost anything because I know what it is to be a fighter. And sometimes a ref might not be really in tune, like deeply in tune with what he's actually doing and what it means to the fighter. You know, some of these guys, I mean, they take it like it's their life on the line. Like getting stopped on a cut is just horrible. It's like something that you'll never forget, some of these guys. So again, you have to know the fighter. You have to know who you're dealing with. You know, I remember a fight when Vince Phillips stopped Mickey Ward on a cut, like in the third round. And, you know, it is what it is. It was a female referee. I think she panicked. She wasn't super experienced, but she panicked and she stopped the fight, not knowing who Mickey Ward is, you know, deeply. Now, if I'm a ref, I'm not stopping Mickey Ward on a cut. No, there's no chance. I mean, there's no way. It's certainly not after just 3 rounds. So, you know, these decisions have a lasting impact on fighters.
Yeah, they sure do. These guys are warriors. Like, you guys are warriors. Yeah. You know, the fighters like yourself, like Vitali Klitschko, Gatti, Ward, fighters like yourself that don't want to quit. I respect. I can see that you're a warrior. You know, you don't want to quit, and I respect that.
Yes, sir, 100%.
But I have to also ask you about Teofimo López and his performance. What were your thoughts in his most recent fight this past week?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't see it, but I saw the aftermath when they caught him on film. It was kind of weird. Like, he asked his father or somebody he said, do I still have it? Like, I don't know if you saw that. He actually said, it was in the ring. He was like leaning up against the ropes. I guess they were waiting for the decision or they had just announced it, but whatever it was, he questioned. He said out loud, do I still have it? Like, did I lose it? Meaning, am I washed up? So he apparently didn't think his performance was very good. He might not have thought he won, or he might have thought, I won, but I didn't win. You know, so that's an interesting thing. You know, I always say the best and the worst time to interview a fighter is right after after the fight. In many cases, certain circumstances, I wouldn't let a fighter talk right after the fight because a fighter is going to say what he feels, the truth. And I mean the raw truth. He's going to let it out there. And I'll tell you a trick I used to use when I was fighting, especially as an amateur, because you interact with opponents more in the amateurs than you do in the pros. Whenever I would be around guys in my weight class, and especially after we fought each other in the ring and right after the fight, I would talk to them on purpose because I would want to extract information from them because I knew those were the moments they were going to give it up. So I would find out from guys. So I'll give an example. One particular guy, I was talking to him after we fought, and he told me some things about himself. And I promise you, we fought each other again about 4 months later. What he told me in that conversation, I used it against him in the fight as a technique and a strategy, and I beat him much easier than I did the first time. All because he told me too much in those moments. So you have to be careful what you say to people because you'll spar a guy, right? Here's where fighters make a lot of mistakes. You'll spar with a guy, and he'll tell you, "Oh man, you caught me with like 3 or 4 body shots. I wanted to quit. I almost quit." Well, guess what? If we fight a month or 2 later, I'm gonna know you told me you wanted to quit against me with my body shots. Well, you can't lie later on and say, "Oh, I didn't say that," or "I didn't mean it." No, man, you told me. You spilled the beans. So even when I was around guys in my weight class that I was friends with, I never divulged anything that they could use against me down the line, ever.
So you don't want to give up that secret.
Nah, man. But the guys do it all the time. And like I say, I've sparred with guys who told me things. Like a guy one time, he told me, "Man, when you move side to side, it's really hard to catch you." Well, guess what? We fought about a year later, and I moved side to side for the whole fight, and he couldn't touch me. He was a dummy for telling me that. He should never. I would have never told somebody that. So, you got to take advantage of opportunity.
I got to ask you now that you're speaking about this. When you sparred James Toney, what did he say to you? Because James Toney loved to talk.
I'll tell you what. He talked constantly, so much that I mean, he's mean, like he's nasty, and we hung out a lot. But sometimes we'd be talking, sparring, and he would talk to me so aggressively that I would think to myself, "Man, I don't think we're friends anymore. I don't think we're friends." But once I started talking back to him, I could see he liked it. And one of his friends told me, he said, "You got to keep doing that, man. He likes that. He feeds off of that. He likes when you do that because it's going to step your game up and his game. And you guys are going to have much better work, much better preparation, much better sparring." So I ended up doing it with him. But, I mean, I can remember him sparring with guys, and I would talk trash, but I didn't go out of my lane, right? But there was guys sparring with him. They were talking about going to the car and getting their gun and coming back and shooting James. Like, it was that type of thing. Like, these guys are, and I'm saying, man, like, as soon as they're done, I'm leaving. Because this guy's talking about going out to the parking lot and getting the gun out of the trunk. So, but then when they spar, when they're done, everything's fine. So it was fun. I had a lot of fun sparring with James, and that trash talk was part of what made it fun.
James Toney is quite a character, but
yeah, for sure.
I love him. I love him. I even did a face-off with him at the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But speaking of Teofimo López, do you think he's mentally ruined?
I think. Well, here's the thing. Like I said earlier about fighters talking after the fight. Right after the fight in the ring. So he may have still had his gloves on. And he said, "Do I still got it? Like, am I washed up?" Now, he cannot come back from that. You cannot say next week, "Oh, I felt great." It's like, no, you didn't. 2 minutes after the fight, you felt like you were washed up. So he for future opponents, he let a huge cat out of the bag, right? Now, I'll give you an example. And I was talking to a fighter about this. I remember one time, right? I pay attention. I pay attention to every detail with fighters, looking for something to exploit. And I remember a fight one time, and the opponent, the other guy in the other corner, you know, he was talked a lot and, you know, whatever. So I went in to the and I might have told, I think it was you I told this. So if you know who it is, don't say who it is. I don't want to call him out, but I'm just going to say. So I'm in the dressing room, and I'm watching him get his hands wrapped. Now, this dude we've never spoken a word to each other in our lives to this day, other than this. We've never talked. I don't know him. I've never interacted with him. I watched him get his hands wrapped, and something happened with him, a little thing, but I made a big thing out of it with the inspector. I said, hey, man, he can't do that. You gotta, and he goes, oh, yeah. And he made this kid do something twice that the kid didn't want to do, and he had to. So after they wrapped the hands, when I was walking out of the dressing room, he swore at me and he called me a faggot. He yelled it out to me. And I walked out laughing. I walked out smiling because I knew mentally he was in a bad place, you know, to do that. I was able to get under his skin, which I did intentionally, but I was able to get under his skin 15 minutes, 20 minutes before the fight happened, whatever, half hour before he walked out. He never should have showed me that. He never should have said that to me, but he did. He couldn't help himself, and all that did was give me something that I could use. So in the corner, do you remember this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I remember. I don't want to say his name.
Yeah, don't say his name. Don't say his name. But I remember every time in the corner, when he got in our corner above us, I was right behind him. So I know he could hear me. And I'm yelling all kinds of stuff just to annoy him. I wasn't yelling it, you know, for any other reason, just to let him hear my voice, because I already knew he was annoyed with me. So that's to show you that sometimes even guys on a world-class level, they can show you things that they shouldn't let you see. And he made a big mistake. And I'm sure my words to him in those moments, they didn't help. You know, they you know, I don't know how much they hurt, but they certainly didn't help. They didn't give him confidence. So he made a big mistake. He should have kept quiet in the dressing room a half an hour earlier.
Well, he got ruined by what you said, and he definitely got ruined by your fighter.
Yeah, for sure. Now listen, people are gonna ask you later who we're talking about. Don't say anything. It's a secret.
I'll just say I forgot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I think you know, going back to Teofimo López, I honestly don't know what to think anymore. I think that, you know, even if there was a Lomachenko rematch, I would favor Lomachenko.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I say, think about what he said. Think about it. Did I lose it? Am I washed up? How in the world are you going to ask that question out loud? You can never come back from that. You cannot say, oh, I didn't mean it. Of course you meant it. You didn't know the camera was on. You didn't realize, or you didn't care because you figure, I'm washed up. So you know, it's terrible. Now he's gonna now granted, it may never come into play. He may box beautifully for the rest of his career, but he involuntarily showed something he shouldn't have showed.
For sure. Hey, Iceman, man, it's a pleasure as always speaking with you. And
always.
Before I let you go, man, what's going on with Better Be Up there? What are you guys working on?
They're working on everything. You know, just getting ready. We've got a lot of time. You know, it's early in the camp, so we've got plenty of time before we go.
I saw that video you posted up the other day of you trying to, I think, do some push-ups the same way that Better BF does.
Yeah. No, he's got this little device he uses, and he does it no problem. Like, he bangs them out, and it looked easy, you know. it was sometimes people can do things that look easy, and I tried to do it, and it wasn't easy. You know, it was hard. Yeah, it was difficult.
I don't know. I don't know how Better BF does that, but he sure has a lot of strength.
Yeah, no, he's his core is just phenomenal. He's a beast. He's phenomenal with the strength. Yeah, for sure.
He sure is, and I can't wait. I can't wait to Better BF in yard.
Yes, sir. It's going to be great.
Yeah, Iceman. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Okay, we'll talk soon.
See you next time. All right.